Hello everyone and welcome back to their MySQL tutorial. So what we're going to do in today's video is do some more advanced queries. We're going to retouch on that select query that I mentioned a little bit in the last video, and we'll talk about some new ones about how we can modify the table and alter it. And then in the next video, we'll probably touch on something called foreign keys. And then from there, we'll actually deploy this out to a server and maybe do some example code and show how we actually use this in a real project. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So I've actually cleared the table I made in the last video, so I'm kind of starting off fresh here. So that means the first thing I need to do is actually create a new table. So what I'm going to do is say mycursor.execute create table. And now what I'm going to do is actually add some different kind of values into this table to show you some different ones that you can use. So I'm just going to call this one test because it's not really going to have any, unified information. It's all just going to be random. So we're going to start by having a name that'll be equal to variable character 50. And then what else could we have? Well, I want to have a date. So the date that this was created on. So I'm going to say created equals date time. Then I want to have a gender. So I'm going to say gender. And this is actually going to be equal to an enum. And what an enum is allows you to select between a few different values. And we'll talk about this in a second once I finish typing it here. So essentially when I put enum here, what this means is you can select either male, female, or other. So those are the three options that will be accepted for this gender block here. And that's just what an enum value is. Now what date time is, it's actually a Python date time object. And you can see up here, I've imported date time from date time, so that when I want to insert an entry here, what I can do is use this date time module. It will give me the date and time, and I can store it in the correct format in this. Now the last thing I want to add is an ID, and I'll say the ID is int primary key. I think I spelled that right. And then what else do we need? Not null auto underscore increment, like that. And I'm just going to add not null to the rest of these because we don't want them to be null. Like that. And last one, and then we can execute this and we should be good to go. So let's run this command. There we go, we're good. Quick recap, we did the enum thing. That's kind of the only new value here. Primary key means this is now going to be auto incrementing because we have this, and this is going to be the way that we access any element in test is by the ID. So let's comment this out now, and now let's actually insert some items in and talk about selecting. So again, quick recap here. What I'm going to do is just insert some items. So I'm going to say mycursor.execute, and in this case we'll say insert into test, like that. Then we're going to put the name of the column. So we need name, like that. We need created, and we need gender. Okay, so now that we have that, we'll say values here, and then we'll do %s, %s, like that. Now we can actually put the values in a, tuple here, and then we can add them in. So for the name, we will say Tim. I guess we'll leave it all capitals. For the created date, what we actually need to do is say date time dot now, and that's going to give us the current date and time, like at the current point in which we enter this in. And then after this, what do we need? Well, we need to pick a gender, and in this case, I'm going to pick male. So again, you have to choose between one of these three values, otherwise that's not going to work. Okay, so now that we have that, let's actually commit these changes. So say db.commit, like that. Run this, and we're good to go. And let's insert some more here just so we have some. So I'll say like Joe, that'll be male as well. And then let's add, Joey. We can do that one so we can test some comparisons. Let's just say that's a female. And okay, we'll stick with that for right now. Okay, so now that we have that, I want to show you the select command and how we can actually select specific values from our table. So I talked about it briefly in the last one, but if I want to select different values that are inside my table, I can actually put some conditions on them. So I can select maybe all the females or all the males or all the people that have, the name Joey or that start with the T. I can do as specific as I want, and that's what I can do with this select command. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say mycursor.execute. And in this case, we're going to say select star from test where, and now what I can do after where is put a condition. So in this case, I could say something like where, and let's just pick a column. Let's do where gender equals, and in this case, we will say male. Now what I can do is loop through this. So I'm going to say for x in my cursor, print x. So let's run that. And now we can see that we actually get the 2 entries that I put in my table, which were Tim and Joe, because they are both males. Okay, so I just tried to order these and messed up, but the way that we can actually order these entries when we get them, so let's just run this one more time so we can see them. Say we want to order them by ID, and we want the ID to be, greatest to least. Well, what we can actually do is add another clause here that says order by, and then what we can do is pick the column name. So in this case, maybe I'm going to say, I don't know, ID, and then here I will say either ASC, which stands for ascending, or DSSC, sorry, which stands for descending. So if I do that now, you can see when I go descending, we're going to get the greatest first, and then it's going to go downwards. And that is kind of how we can execute these queries. Now, say we don't actually care about all this information. Like, we don't care about the date, we don't care about the name, maybe we just want the gender, or maybe we just want, I don't know, some specific piece of information. Well, what I can do is actually just put the column that I want here, and it will only select that column from the entries. So I say select ID from test, where gender equals male, order by ID, and now you can see that I just get 2 and I just get 1. Now, if we want more than one piece of information, I can go like ID name, and now you can see it's actually going to give it to us in that order as well, where we get the ID first and then the name, and again, obviously these are corresponding to the elements that are in there. Now I could change this to female, and you can see that now we get Joey because that's our only female in there, and that is kind of how this select works. You can get pretty advanced with this and do some like pretty complex queries, but for now I'm just going to leave it at that, as that's pretty straightforward and you can already do quite a bit with that. Okay, so now that we have that, I want to talk about how we can modify our table. So maybe once in a while, we add some stuff into our table, and we realize we need to add a new column, or we need to change the name of a column, or maybe, it was a small int and now we need to make it a big int or something like that. Well, how do we do that? Well, there's actually a command for this in MySQL, as you guys probably guessed, and it is called alter. So we can actually alter our tables. So the way to alter a table is you start by saying alter table, and then you type the name of the table. In this case, it's going to be test, and then whatever the alteration is that you want to do. Now, in this case, the most basic one we can do is add a new column. So to do that, I'm going to say add column, and then we need to give the name of the column. So maybe in this case, we'll do like, I'm trying to think of a decent example. Let's just do like food, and this could be equal to var chair 50. So from that first example in that first video where we said, maybe each person has a favorite food, that's something we could do there. Now we can also add, the constraint not null, like that. And now we can commit this. So I guess db.commit, or actually, sorry, I don't need to commit that. I don't know what I'm doing. Now, if I run that, we're good to go. And now what I'm going to do is just run another command here. So mycursor.execute, and I'm just going to describe this table so that we can see what it looks like. So describe test. And then what I'm going to do is print out my cursor, and I'm going to show you a cool way that we don't have to loop through it every time to see the output. So what I can do is, if I know I'm only getting one line of output, I can actually just print out my cursor dot fetch 1. Now you're going to see this isn't going to work for this, but if I do that, what it will do is just get me the first entry that is returned by my cursor. So say we know we're only having one line of output, we can just do my cursor dot fetch 1 and print that out directly rather than having to loop through it. Now, since this has more than one column, I need to show all of them. So I'm going to say for x in my cursor, print x. Okay, so there we go. Now we get all of our columns. So we have name, created, gender, ID, and our newly added column food. Now let's say we decide that, we actually don't want food anymore. We don't want that. How do we remove that from our table? Well, to do that, and actually I'll leave the describe so that we can see it after. I'm going to say my cursor dot execute as usual. And in this case, all I have to do is say alter table test drop, and then the column name. So in this case, the column name was food. So let's do food. And if I run this now, you can see that when we redescribe the table, there is no column name food, as we dropped it and got rid of it. Okay, so those are some basic alterations, but another one that we can do is actually change the name of our columns and even the name of the tables as well. So to change the name of a column, what you can do is say alter table test, and then you can put the keyword change the name of the previous column, which in this case, we'll just change name to be equal to first underscore name. And then you have to redefine the type that you want to change it to. So in this case, varchar 50, like that. Let's run that. And you can see now we've changed name to first name. So I just want to show you something that you have to be careful with when you do this. So let's say I want to change the first name column. We want to leave it the same name, so first name, but I want to change the type of it to varchar 2 or something like that. Now, what do you think is going to happen when I do this? Remember, I already have entries in my table that have names, right? They already have variable character names, and some of them have a length greater than 2. So what happens when I try to change it so that that information might not be able to be stored anymore? Well, when I run this, we actually get an error, and it's saying here, data truncated for column first name at row 1. So it's essentially saying there's an issue here. You can't do that because based on some of the entries you currently have in the database, well, we cannot change this type because it won't be able to hold the information. Now, if I change this to 4 though, that'll work fine because there's no name inside my database that has a length greater than 4. So that is kind of how you go about changing the name of the columns. Now we can also change the name of the tables. We can do all kinds of stuff. There's tons of different alter commands, but that is kind of the basics of how to do that. So what I've kind of shown you guys so far here is just how to create a table using like enums and dates and all that kind of stuff, how we can alter the tables after we've done that, and how we can select specific entries from our table using kind of some advanced queries. So I'm going to cut it here. There is so many more queries I could show you. I'm just trying to introduce you guys to some of them so you have an idea what's possible in MySQL, because the reality is most of the time you're going to have to look up how to do what you want to do. But in the next video, what I'll be doing is showing you something called foreign keys, which are really important and powerful for referencing other tables from specific rows in one table. So anyways, that has been it for MySQL. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next tutorial.